Today, in a major case on the right to life, the European Court of Human Rights ruled in favor of Tom Mortier. His mother, Godlieva de Troyer, was euthanized by lethal injection in 2012, age 64, without even informing her family, including Tom. Her euthanasia was conducted on the basis of a diagnosis of incurable depression. In the case of Mortier versus Belgium, the court found that Belgium violated the European Convention on Human Rights when it failed to properly examine the alarming circumstances leading to her euthanasia. Human rights advocates at ADF International, who supported the case, see this as a landmark ruling in favor of the right to life for all human beings from conception to the natural death. Next Sunday, October 9th, the Catholic Church will have two new saints, Blessed Giovanni Battista Scalabrini and Blessed Artemide Zatti. Scalabrini was Bishop of Piacenza from the age of 37 and founded the missionaries of St. Charles Borromeo, also known as the Scalabrinians. Its mission was to provide pastoral care to the immigrants leaving Italy and the turn of the 20th century. Artemide Zatti was born in the Italian region of Emilia. He emigrated to Argentina where he met the Salesians and considered taking up religious life. However, after contracting tuberculosis, he decided not to become a priest, but instead traveled to Patagonia, where he took up his ultimate vocation, caring for the sick. Zatti ran the hospital founded by the Salesians until his death in 1951, and he was beatified in 2002. Pope Francis has said that he was involved in a prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine. Speaking to Jesuits during his trip to Kazakhstan earlier this month, the Pope said a Ukrainian military chief and President Zelensky's religious advisor came to him with a request for help, bringing a list of more than 300 prisoners that the Ukrainian government wanted to exchange. Pope Francis immediately called the Russian ambassador to speed up the exchange. The Pope has repeatedly condemned the war in Ukraine, calling for an end to hostilities. He had won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1996 along with José Ramos Horta for working toward a just and peaceful resolution of the conflict in East Timor. But during those very years, Bishop Felipe Jiménez Bello, apostolical administrator of Dili from 1988 to 2022, allegedly abused minors. The allegations emerged in recent days when a Dutch newspaper reported the anonymous testimonies of some victims. The Vatican confirmed Thursday that Bishop Bello has been under certain disciplinary restrictions since September 2020 related to accusations of sexual abuse of minors. Pope Francis made a direct appeal to Russian President Vladimir Putin for an immediate ceasefire on Sunday, imploring him to end the spiral of violence and death in Ukraine. Speaking from the window of the Apostolic Palace in October 2nd, the Pope dedicated nearly all of his Angelus address to the war in Ukraine. He said, "I deeply deplore the grave situation that has arisen in the recent days. It increases the risk of nuclear escalation, giving rise to fears of uncontrollable and catastrophic consequences worldwide," the Pope said. The Pope also appealed to Ukrainian President Zelensky to be open to serious proposals for peace. Pope Francis also met with Apple CEO Tim Cook at the Vatican on Monday morning. Cook spoke privately with Pope Francis on October 3rd, the eve of the feast day of Pope Francis's namesake, St. Francis of Assisi. Known for embracing radical poverty, Apple's stock market value reached $3 trillion in June. The technology executive has been in Italy since September 28th. He first traveled to Naples, where he launched the first Apple Developer Academy in Europe and received an honorary degree from the University of Naples Federico II. Joining me in the studio today is Andreas Tonhauser, EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief. Breaking news today, in a major case for the right to life, the European Court on Human Rights ruled in favor of Tom Mortier in a case concerning euthanasia. Andreas, what can you tell us about this case?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think it's very important to remember the European Court of Human Rights is probably the most important high or supreme court in Europe. More than 40 countries are member states, and all the citizens living there, so hundreds of millions of Europeans, need to comply also with the rulings of the European Court of Human Rights. Today we saw a landmark win for the right to life here in Europe on the matter of euthanasia, as you said. Tom Mortier, he sued the Belgian government, more or less. He brought this case towards the European Court of Human Rights in 2012, and it's been going on for more than 10 10 years now, his battle to also defend the right of his mother for life, because she was euthanized older than 60 years. She had a depression. She went to a doctor's. She never came back from that. And his family was only informed a day later by the hospital, asking him to pick up her clothes and all her things that she left there, and he didn't even know what was going on.
Wow.
And so he was so upset about this, because in Belgium it's one of the very few countries in Europe that do have legalized euthanasia. And I think it's since 2004. In the beginning it were only extreme cases, very few cases. Now it's more than 2,000 cases every year, including children as young as 12 years old, for example, who have the right to request euthanasia. Now, the European Court of Human Rights made clear that there is no such right to have euthanasia, but in fact that the Belgian authorities and the Belgian doctors ignored the right to life of Tom Mortier's mother.
No, that's very inspiring. And Andreas, with this victory for life, what precedent will this do in terms of the conversations going on with euthanasia and the right to life in Europe and in the United States?
Well, the European Court of Human Rights has a very important signal function as well, because ultimately it's the job of this court to interpret the human rights laws that we have, that were introduced on a global level, that most of the countries signed up to. And we've seen in the past that also, for example, in the US, a lot of lawmakers have looked towards Europe and towards this court in Strasbourg to see how do they interpret human rights. And as we know, even in the US today, a lot of states are discussing introducing the legalization of euthanasia. So we can be hopeful that actually this is a very important signal ruling to make sure that euthanasia remains illegal in most of the world.
No, that's very inspiring. And Andreas, one last question. Where do we go from here?
So I think it's very important, even for the church, to consider when Pope Francis came back from Kazakhstan, for example, in the in-flight press conference, he said the West has taken a wrong turn. And he was speaking about euthanasia, for example, there. He says we have to really respect the right to life of every human being. So this ruling today makes us feel very hopeful that actually a lot of people will now pay more attention to this very fundamental right from conception to the natural death, that every human being needs to be protected and the human right to life needs to be respected.
Well, that's so beautiful and so important. Thank you so much, Andreas. For all of you watching, be sure to tune in here on ewtnvatican.com. My name is Benjamin Crockett, and thank you so much.